everyone. Can we switch to... Good afternoon, everyone. So I hope you can hear me all right. So we are halfway through the day, and in few hours, your 3-day React Nexus event will wrap up. I hope you had fun, and we are going to definitely add some of the tech drama to it with our session. So stay tuned in. So I'm Amrita Rai, Senior Engineering Manager at GoDaddy. As you mentioned that I'm older, as old as IntelliSense when they made their way. So it's like, you know how senior I am, right? So, but that feels good. I mean, you just take me seriously for that. So I work for GoDaddy Care Services. We build software for our care department. And today we are going to showcase a real world problem that we solved with the conversational bot, where we have built event driven systems, and passing the data over WebSocket with XState, how we have made it scalable. So we are going to show all of this cover all of this in today's session. But before we go there, you need to know the backstory of it so that you can enjoy the tech climax, as I say. So, giving you a quick or a short overview what GoDaddy actually does. Okay, so GoDaddy is not just a domain registrar. We are global leaders in empowering everyday entrepreneurs. We provide products, services, guidance for small businesses or individuals who want to maintain their individual presence. Okay, individual who want to maintain their online presence, sorry. So we proudly cater to 20 million plus customers. We actively manage 80 million plus domains, around 70 million plus websites, at least just to say so here, correct? We boast of 65 plus NPS score. That means we really need very critical customer care. We lead very critical customer care operations. Okay, so for us, customer care really means a lot, and that's why the services that we build to make our customer care efficient becomes very crucial as an organization. So, as I mentioned that the level of customers, the volume of customers, then if you combine it with the product services that they can opt in, the combination in itself is voluminous, right? And for that, the customer care guides we have, those are not humongous in numbers. Okay, so with that scale of customers, when you are providing a customer care, you need, as a customer care guide, you need to be really efficient, so that you can solve their queries, you can provide the guidance as accurate as possible, and be able to sell your products as well on the same message or call support. So when we say that, just imagine the volume each of our guide handles in terms of customers. So they get 12 million customer contacts a year. And that is when what they have to do when they get all these contacts. Say customer comes in and he asks about, tell me where is my domain, why it is not working, or my email is set up, I have to set up my email correctly, or I want this service, or I want this security service or something. How do I do that? Now, with the variation of data or the services that we offer, we have to, as a guide, I have to go and look for all these resources at multiple places, run some of the tools, get all the information, which used to take a lot of time, but not now, because now we have the AI, rather agentic AI, and the solution that we have built. So that to bring that efficiency and increase that efficiency, I'm going to walk you through the model that we have built. So, okay, does this work? So if you can see, is it okay? Okay, I'll use this. That is. No, that's fine. Okay, sorry for interruption. So if you look at this diagram, each of our customer care guide gets queries from. Excuse me, guys. Just keep it here. Yeah. So sorry for the interruption again. Okay. So let's start again. So every care guide gets query from multiple customers. More than one customer is what they are catering to at once. Now the queries can be of different nature at the same time, and when they get the query, what our system does is, based on the query, it identifies the intent of the question that is being asked. So when we talk about intent, it just identifies which part the query lies into. And why it is important is because we have all the agentic AI built around bounded context, where agentic AI where my agents can work for the specific context and provide the much better or accurate results. Correct. Now, when the intent identification happens, one of the agent or multiple agents will be triggered, which will again go to one tool, or it will get some data from the LLM content, or somewhere it will go and figure out what it has to process. Now, in this, since this is not an agentic AI session, so I won't delve into this further. But for you to know, since it is in agentic AI, there can be multiple agent handoffs that can keep happening. So one agent, there are agents talking to each other. Then every agent is doing some of the functions, whether it is doing some data processing, it is bringing the data from the tool or some other place. So all these operations are happening with multiple agents working in parallel at the same time. Now, in such systems, we cannot have a synchronous communication from the query, from where the request is coming in and where the response has to go out. Correct? So, for this, we need to have a synchronous communication built in, and that is where your event-based architecture basically kicks in. So, for event-based architecture, now since we have all these agents working independently, taking their own time to process the data and doing their data churning, reasoning and everything, they take their time, and once they have the output, they are ready to send that data over. Now, where do they send this data? So they can send this data to an event broker, which picks up these events and all these data that is coming in its way. But again, as I said, every agent, AI agent is working differently. It is processing different kind of data. So they might not have same data structure. So how do we handle that? So that's where your cloud events come in, which standardize the way you represent or transmit the data across different cloud services or different cloud systems. So with the cloud event, we pass on the data to this event broker. Now, once event broker has this information, now we have to again pass it on further, take it to the UI. For the UI to get this data, we have established a channel, customer specific channel, so that it is easier to identify or build a tunnel, correct tunnel for each of these customers, correct? Just as an analogy. So so with that channel, which passes the data over WebSockets, it utilizes your publisher subscriber model, where we can publish the data as soon as it is available, and UI can subscribe to it and then show the data on the UI. Okay. So far, I'll do a quick recap. We got the query from the customer, did intent identification, did some agentic AI data processing stuff. And when the agent got ready with the response, it put the output in Cloud Event Structure and posted the event to Event Broker. Okay. And we established the channel with PubSub model so that data can be passed on between UI and the event broker. Okay. Now let's move on to UI part. So this is event-based system where we have talked about the backend part of it, how data is generated and how it is passed across. But now the problems remain same on the UI end as well, correct? So say on the UI, since a guide is catering to multiple customers at the same time, every customer has different kind of query. So say customer 1 talks about domain, he has some queries about domains, then customers 2 has queries around websites or some other thing, then customer 3 talks about hosting, or someone is asking about orders or something. Now each of this information has to be represented on the UI at the same time, asynchronously, and on the same UI, correct? Now you cannot have the crossover data. All of this data is different in terms of the model. So domain will have its own specific model structure, data model structure, then a website will have its own structure. Now, I cannot show it on the same component, so everything has to have a different React component for that. Now, each of these React component, and earlier that I explained with the so many products or services we have, there is lot of different type of data that a guide might need to see. So we have lot of React components that we will have to see based on the query that a customer is asking for. How do we manage that even if we have the channel established where a customer specific data is coming on the UI, but it's the same UI where I have to show multiple customers data and make sure the React components are reacting correctly to it. Okay. So far good, guys, with me? Okay, let's do a quick quiz. So say there are 7 customers who are sending the query, each with average 9 products or services opt-in. How many minimum events will be generated? Awake? Okay, good. I think I got you, I woke you up. Okay, just kidding. No need to answer, just simple math it is. Okay, so let's go back to UI again. Now when the problem that I stated where I have to show so many cards, that's when we bring in XState. Now XState is something again built on the concept of event-driven architecture, which manages all these events and makes and works with React components so that rendering of it on the UI becomes much manageable, or rather say much neater or easier to maintain, and it gives you it tells you how states are going to flow in. But again, I was supposed to cover all this aspect, but then I realized that for a story, for making you feel happy ending for a story, you need to hear the pain and suffering of a developer directly from the developer. So I will rather pass it on to them, and Pranav and Yogesh will share their hate and love stories with state management with React, and then Neha will walk you through the code where she will explain you how to get started with XState, what you need to implement it so that you are ready as you step out of this session. But again, we won't be showcasing this use case because it has a lot of complex components involved in it. So for simplicity purposes, so that you can understand the concept with the and map it to your coding, We have made one simple app so that you can get started right. Even if you want to try it right now, you can do that, or you can try it later as well. And that way, you will be ready to start with it with XState. So thank you so much, guys. I'll have Pranav here. Thank you.
Hi all. I hope everybody can hear me now. So my name is Pranav Sachdeva. I am a software development engineer at GoDaddy, and I just got to know that I am younger to intelligence, which Amrita just informed us. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah. She is a very confused developer, it seems. Possibly she is debugging an application which does not have XState. So a simple to-do application can turn into a quantum physics problem if you are not using XState. So why do we need XState? Let us start with a problem that many front-end engineers face in their day-to-day life, that is UI state management. React gives us many hooks such as useState and useReducer. But as the app grows, this gets messy and it gets very complex. You must have been facing issues with React such as performance issues with so many re-renders occurring, and it gets very hard to debug each and every one of them. So you can see the illustrated here. Yes, this is me now. This was the confused developer which I was when I didn't learn XState. But now it has improved a lot. So this is a web of triangle transitions, complex flows, which leads to unpredictable app behavior, and each managed in a single isolation. So what does this lead to? It leads to impossible states and unexpected transitions. So what are these? Impossible states, such as a component can be in both loading and success state at the same time, and we won't know how unexpected transitions can happen, where state changes in ways where we didn't plan for. And of course, the poor developer, which I was, frustrated and confused, trying to trace these transitions manually, is having a hard time. In real-world applications such as chat wizards and models, state logic quickly becomes nightmare to debug, maintain, and scale. So that's where XState comes into play to untangle the spaghetti and show its magic to structure the real-world code application. So what makes XState different? And how does it we should use it? So one of the benefits is predictable state transitions. With XState, we get explicitly modeled diagrams, which makes our code structure maintainable and also understandable for each and every developer, which makes bugs like impossible states extremely impossible to design itself. So if we cannot code that bug, then how will we receive that bug? So this is one of a good benefit of XState, which we face with other tools. Visual modeling. We use tools like stately.io, which will be demonstrated further by my teammate. But this is an application which shows how we can view our state machine without having to look at the code. This way, it is great for onboarding teams, debugging, reviewing logic with non-developers too. Side effect management is a beautiful application showed by XState, wherein we handle the API calls. No more random use effects floating around. Everything is tied to your state machines. If you have ever seen in your React application, there are so many use states and use effects floating inside your code at the start of a component, middle of a component, or anywhere inside the code, which makes our re-rendering very difficult to understand, and we often forget where it is our code. So that is why XState is a good program, because it helps you to know where exactly is your specific application, and you can help debug that easily. Scalability and maintainability is also important when we grow the application and traffic comes into many other users. XState scales better than the useState and useEffect chaos. It is a lot more structured, as I already told. We get hierarchical state, parallel states, and even invoke children states, all structured in one place. Testing is an important aspect of software engineering. I know most of us don't like it, but it is highly important so that we do not get bugs. So XState makes us easier for it because it is centralized application and deterministic. Unit testing becomes easy. You just need to test the transitions and actions at a single time for consistent result across the application, and we do not need to write full integration test cases. Event-driven architecture. This is a very important architecture which we need to learn, because for real-world applications, it aligns better with async system queues and operations, and this is how the real-world apps behave. So to wrap up, if our app is growing, our state is branching, and our logic feels like a spaghetti, XState gives you a clean, scalable, and a visual way to demonstrate it. There is a very simple golden thumb rule for XState, that if we can write our state logic on a pen and paper, then we should definitely go for XState. Thank you.
Thanks, Pranav. So myself, Yogesh Rasam, software development engineer at GoDaddy. So before continuing with XState, we should know what is a finite state machine. Okay, so finite state machine is just a clear map of all possible state, what events can happen, and how you move from one state to another. It's called finite because everything is defined. You can't accidentally end up in an undefined state. For example, a simple problem could be a switch. A switch can be only in off and on state. It can't be in both state. And the events like flipping the switch, which triggers the transition between those. So, what is XState? XState is a JavaScript library for creating, interpreting, and running finite state machines and state chart. It is created by Stately. It gives you a clear way to model your app's logic, so it stays predictable and visual and easy to test. Think of it like a blueprint. So your app responds to different events. So there is another thing which you need to know, state chart. So what is a state chart? State chart is just an extension of state machine. It adds more powerful features like nested states, parallel states, which help you handle more real world flows in your app. So, but a machine itself is just a plan. Machine or state chart is just a plan. You need an instance of that. So to actually run that plan, you need an actor. An actor is just a live running instance of your machine. It tracks its own current state, handles event, and can talk to other actors. So this is an actor model. So let's take an example. So here you see an app like a super booking app. It is designed as a parent state machine. Inside it, you have a separate machines for each service. One for hotel booking, one for parcel delivery, and one for food ordering, and so on. Let's take a food ordering machine as an example. Whenever you place a food order, the app creates an instance of that machine called an actor. This actor is linked to a specific provider like Zomato, Swiggy, or Uber Eats. The best part is that you can have multiple actors running in parallel. So if you place two food orders, like one you place on Swiggy and one you place for Zomato, each order runs independently with its own state and life cycle. So additionally, there is one more thing. Let me change. This screen is not. Okay, so there is something called as Stately Studio, which is also created by Stately. So, which is a visual tool that lets you see your machine and actors, simulate flows, and test everything before you use it in your app. So, it helps you debug the application before actually you implement it. So, here you see a simple machine, simulation of a machine. So this is a top level flow. Its job is to help the user to pick what they want, to book flight, hotels, and food. So it starts like, let me simulate and show. So this is just an feature of Stately that you can simulate the flows of XState and you can see how it will behave. Let me see that. So now consider this is the initial state, querying booking. So initially it will be in querying booking, then it will go into this nested state, selecting service, and then it can end up in either booking confirm or booking error state. So for example, let's suppose we are selecting food booking. Okay, so now for this food booking we have a separate machine, and similarly for other services as well we have a separate machine. So let's go into that machine. We have separated the machines to for simplicity. Okay, so when this food booking machine gets created, there is an instance of this which gets created. Now, inside this food booking machine, we have option to select Uber Eats, Zomato, and Swiggy. Like you are seeing here three similar structure. Now consider this single structure as a single machine. This is just for representation purpose. Okay. So now let's simulate this. Okay. So if, for example, user selects Zomato, okay, it will create an instance of this machine, and the instance is called the actor. So the actor's provider will be assigned as Zomato. Now inside this state machine, each box is a state like idle, processing, cancelled, completed. These are the states. Then the arrows which are shown here, these are the transitions: start booking, confirm booking, cancel booking. So when each provider actor is running its own copy of same logic, this shows how the actors model lets you break up big flow into smaller, reusable parts that can run side by side. So there is a common question mostly people ask, that when should you make something a sub-machine and when should you run it as an actor? So the answer is very simple. Every piece of logic should be a machine. Without machine, we can't create an instance and it will not run. So when you create a machine, that's your blueprint. So when you need to run it as independently or in parallel, you run it as an actor. And if the sub logic is tightly connected and won't run it on its own, you can just make it as a nested state. So here, using provider actor means we can handle multiple bookings in parallel, each with its own status, without mixing up the flows. And thanks to Stately Studio, this is the Stately Studio, you can all see all the states, transition, and actors in one place, test them, and know exactly how your app behaves. So in this simulation, we can just see that if we transition from start booking, it will go to processing, and then when it is confirmed, it will go to the complete state. Okay, this is common state shown here. So this shows how XState lets you keep complex flows clear and isolated. So each booking or order works smoothly without interfering with other. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now we'll be moving to the next speaker of the same topic. We have amazing speaker who is true full stack developer, and she likes to say a full stack developer because she always curious about how things are built inside and out. When she is not writing code, she is either dancing, traveling, or probably debugging in different time zones. Please welcome the always energetic and curious Neha Patil.
Hello everyone. Am I audible? Okay. So I'm Neha Patil. I'm working as a senior software engineer at GoDaddy. And so talk is cheap. Let's talk about the code. Show me the code. So let me show you the code about this XState, everything my team members talked about. So imagine an app where you can book or order multiple things at the same place. For example, I want to order a food, maybe from the Zomato and Swiggy at the same time with different sessions in the same page. Maybe we can able to do that. Why do we need to do that? Maybe I need to just compare the prices, and whatever is the less price, I'll continue with that session, something like that. Simultaneously, if I want to book maybe hotel, then I can also maybe able to do that in the same page, something like that. So let me just give you the demo for this idea. I'll just close this. So we have created this demo project for this idea, and I'll just run it. I'll use the demo account. So here we have different categories. Maybe let's go to food delivery. I'll start the session. Okay. Yeah, now it's visible. Okay, so we have different categories and I have just started a session for food delivery. Here I can select any app I want, maybe Swiggy, add the location and maybe pick up restaurants. I haven't created a whole UI because here we need to focus on the X-state management, not the UI. So assume that I have selected the restaurant and maybe complete the order. Simultaneously, I can create one more session, maybe select here some other app, check the prices and complete the order. I think you got the idea. I have here one button, view history, through which I can see the history of my orders. So let's go through the code, how we have built this. So we have some React components for this UI and we have state machines. So I think you got the idea, what are the state machines from my team members. I'll show you the code, how to create a state machine. So I'll start with the app machine. You can call it as root because here I'm handling the top level states. So just before this code, let's understand it through visual representation. Here you can see this link, right? Visual editor. You will get this once you install this extension XState VS Code. So whenever you create this machine, right, you will get this link to check the visual representation of that machine. I'll open it in the full mode. It's visible in the end, right? Okay. So by default, user will be in the unauthenticated state. And before that, let me tell you this different boxes. With this rectangular box, it is a state, and with this rounded corner box, there are the events. So here you can see there are a couple of states: unauthenticated, authenticated, global error, and inside authenticated state, we have two more states: booking mode, history mode, and this is the booking mode page. Once I click on this, we will get history mode page. So let me simulate it so that you will get more understanding of this diagram. By default, user will be in the unauthenticated state and he or she will be able to only log in from there. So once they log in, we will trigger this login event and it will go into the authenticated state. And by default, it will be a booking mode. This arrow represents that the default state for any particular state machine. Whenever you are in the booking mode, you have three options. Either you can log out, some random error comes up and we will trigger the global error event, or you will go into the history mode. So if I want to go into history mode, I'll trigger the view history and we will have the history mode activated. I think you got the idea, right? So let me just go through the code. I'll keep this diagram on the side so that it will be easier for us to understand the code. Okay, so inside the states object, right, we can directly start adding different states like this. It will be the key value and the value for that state will be an object. So here we have three states and once we have defined the states, we need to define the events, this login, logout events. So inside, if someone is inside the unauthenticated state, we will only have one event, right? So I will add that event inside the on object. So you can call it as an syntax. We need to add every event in the on object. So I have only one event right now here. We will come back to this code later. Let me just talk about context here. Don't get confused with context API. So this context is different in terms of X state or state machine. So context is data with respect to that state machine. So imagine we need to store something at the machine level, state machine level. I'll store it inside the context. So for this machine, I'm storing only the user details. By default, we will not have any data because it is in the unauthenticated state. Once someone log in, I will update this context and add more details about the user, maybe ID, email ID, whatever we want to add. So coming back to this event object, right? So till now we covered states, events, contexts. Now let's talk about actions. So whenever we want to perform side effects, right? We want to call API or maybe store something in the cache, whatever. We can add those side effects inside actions. So here I'm just storing the user data inside the context user, nothing else. But if you want to add more side effects, you can just add here. You can make this as array and one after another you can add the functions. I'll show you in the next example. Okay, so I think we have covered pretty much all the basic concepts of the state machine. I'll close it. I'll show one more machine so that you will get a thorough understanding of it. Here you can see multiple categories and each category can have different flows because maybe hotel booking needs start and end date. Likewise, other categories will have some different data. So it's logical to create different state machines for each category. So let me show you the state machine for food category, and then we will build state machine for hotel booking right away here on this machine. I mean, on my laptop, not the machine. Okay. So I'll show you first the food machine. Okay. As we are using the TypeScript, so I have defined some types. I'll not go through it. I'll quickly tell you how this food machine is designed. So you have seen this UI. We have different steps while ordering a food. So that's why I have, according to that steps, I have created the states. First, they will select the app, then they will add the location, so on. Then whatever they add at each step, I will store it into the context. That's why I have created this structure inside the context. And after each state, like once they complete each state, I'm triggering an event like select app. Once they select the app, I'll trigger this event and I'll store that data inside the context. Just quick representation of this state machine will be like this. Once they select the app, I'll trigger the select app event. They will go into entering location and so on. So let's create one state machine here right away. This is an empty file. We are creating a state machine for hotel booking right now. There are some imports I have already done. So let's create a machine. So this create machine function will create a machine. Okay, I'll not take the suggestion from Copilot right now. Okay, so we have created a machine. Now we will add the states. Anyone can tell me what will be the states? Anyone? Okay, I'll just right away write it down. So quite similar to the food machine. First they will select the app, whatever it is, Oyo, Agoda, maybe some other app. Then they will add the details and they move to the next step. Likewise, they will cover all these steps. After defining the states, we need to create the context object because whatever user created added the information, we need to store it at machine level. So I'll define the context. You can take a look here. I'm just gathering all the information added by the user at each step. I'll define some types so that TypeScript will not give, well, any error related to TypeScript will not come. Okay, there are still some types remaining. I'll add those. Okay, I think this looks fine. We have everything ready. Yes, we have types, we have context, we have states, and the global one is remaining, global types. Yes, great. Now, only one last step is remaining here is we have all the states defined, but we need to tell the state machine that what is the initial state whenever this machine starts. So we can define it here after the ID, anywhere. Actually, I just like to add it after the ID. That's it. So the selecting app will be the initial state. Whenever it starts, it will start from this state. Let's take a look at the visual representation. It is very simple state machine. We can simulate it. We added all these states and events. We can trigger the events and check in which state user will go. And I think it's quite straightforward now. I'll save this machine. We will use it in the next topic. Okay, so now, till now, we just saw how to create a state machine, right? We haven't seen anything related to React yet. But all these things are created by React components. So now we need to understand how to integrate this state machine that we just have defined here with the React components. Then only, depending on the states, this UI will change, right? Otherwise, there is no use of these machines if it is not connected to actual components. So let's go through one component. This is the app component, React component, basically. And let's check how to integrate the our machine to this particular component. So we have this use machine hook from XState React library, which is very useful for this integration. It basically gives the current state of the machine and one function send. Using this function, we can trigger an event to that corresponding machine. So I have used this app machine right now. So I'll get the current state of that app machine here inside this variable. And if I want to trigger any event for that app machine, I'll use this function. So just to give you an idea how to use these two things, I'll show you maybe this example. So once user logs in, right? So I need to tell state machine that login event is triggered, right? So I will add this line, send function from this use machine, whatever is written from the use machine, and the name of the event that I want to trigger, and any data that I want to send to the machine, that will be a second parameter. So this way, I have triggered an event in the state machine. Now, if you want to call an API or do any other things, those things can be handled inside the state machine in the actions object that I just showed you. So here, my app machine is very clear and simple, elegant, because I don't need to write all that logic here. I can add it into my state machine. And tomorrow, if I want to have login flow from some other component, then I can trigger the same event, and all the things, all the side effects that I have defined in the logic event will get triggered there as well. So there will be no repetition of the code. So I think you got the idea why it is reducing the mental load for the complex app. Okay, and let me just give you the example for this state as well. So because I have the latest state inside this variable, I'll just check what is the state, and depending on that, I'll render the component. So if it is unauthenticated state, I'll just show the login screen. And you got the rest. If it is global error, then I'll return the component that I need to show if there is an error. And we have only 3 sets, so by default, authenticated one state will return this component. So unauthenticated one will show this, authenticated will show this. Okay, great. Now we have integrated our state machine with our React components. Let's move towards the next topic that is actor. So the theory part of actor is covered by Yogesh. I'll show you the code. What we will be implementing using actor is this one. I'm creating multiple sessions for food delivery, right? So in both these cards, the flow will be at any particular step. Here I'm on the first step, but here I'm on the second step. Both the cards will have different data. Here I'm selecting Zomato, here I have already selected Swiggy, all those things. So the flow is same, but data is different. So we can use the same machine, but different multiple actors. So I have used the food machine only for these 2 cards, but I have created multiple actors to render these 2 cards. Let me show you the code. Okay. So this is the function that will get triggered once I click on this create session button. Okay, so inside this function, we will have the category type from this variable, and based on this category type, I will be storing the corresponding machine in the machine variable. Because we didn't had the hotel machine earlier, that's why I commented this code. I'll uncomment this right now because we just created the hotel machines file. Now, pay attention to this line. Here we are creating an actor of a machine. So this machine will have a corresponding state machine of that category, food machine or hotel machine, whatever user has selected here. And we will be creating an actor and storing it inside this variable. I'll start that actor so that once users start filling up the form, this actor will also act accordingly. And in the end, I am storing all the actors into one state, React state. I've already defined this React state here. Session actors. So that if like tomorrow, if I want to access only the second card or whatever, then I need to have the references for all the cards in some variable or in some place, right? So that's why I'm storing all the actors in the session actors variable, not variable, the state. Here. So the session ID will be a unique ID that will be a key, and the value will be the actor. Session ID, I'm creating it as unique by using the current time, so that it will be always unique. And once we have all the actors, I'll trigger the create session event for the state machine, so that if I want to perform any side effects, those things will be taken care of. So I think you got the idea of how state machine works, how to create a state machine, how to integrate it with React app, how to create multiple actors of a state machine. And with these concepts, I think you can design the complex flow very clearly. It helps you to understand what will be the next step, what will be the actual side effects performed at any particular time. So in the end, I just want to tell you that this must have helped you to get started with the XState, and it will give you the predictable and clear visualization of your app and help you in the future. Thank you so much. So we also have a quiz in the end. You can scan this QR code, give the quiz. Top 20 people will have some prizes. So yeah, thank you so much. Do we have time?
Hello. Yeah. So. Hello. I'm asking.
If anybody is having few questions, you can go ahead and ask from all the rows, please.
I have one question. So I wanted to know, like, there are like state machines for, from what I could understood, that login has a state machine, right? It is treated as a state machine, and then some other flow in my application is also treated as a smaller part of the another state machine, but part of a bigger thing. So I wanted to understand more about how the transitions of a state is between two different state machines. So let's say I'm logging in, and after that I'm landing on an e-commerce platform, and then I am adding something to a cart that is entire state machine. Then checkout is so how the transition is, yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. So, good question. I'll just quickly answer this. So, the question is, if there are multiple state machines, how those state machines will talk to each other. That's the question, right? Okay. So, basically, imagine, let's take the same example that I just showed you. Here, I will have the state and send function for the app machine, right? If I want to send an event to some other machine, I will have one more line here for that machine. I'll just show you. Here you will have food machine or something, whatever machine you want to talk to, right? And let's just give, it's a very bad variable name, I know, but just for sake of explanation. So here you will have the both this variable related to the food machine. So you will just trigger an event for this machine using send to function, and that way you can just talk to the second machine.
So basically you pass maybe some argument you must be passing. So send to dot some action, and then you have to pass the, let's say, state from the hotel machine, I can say.
Yeah. So there are majorly only two things. You will either take some data from the machine, or you will send an event to the machine, right? So at any particular time, you will always have those two things, that state and the send function, using that use machine
Okay,
hook.
the state too I can directly use.
Yeah. So you can use both those things. You can get the data, you can send the event, and that way you can manage your communication. Maybe.
Yeah, and sorry, one last question.
Sure.
So is there anything like compose, like in Redux we have to compose all the reducers even though they are having different states. So is there anything, do we have to do something like this to?
Sorry, can you?
So in Redux there is this compose reducer where we compose all the reducers in a eventually. So in the different state machines, do we have to do similar configuration, or this is fine?
Not needed. You can keep the state machines different. You don't need to think about combining it or all those things. It's just simple. Like whatever you can see on the visualizer, right? That's it. And you can just use those two things.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah.
What is the use case of this? Like, there is already use reducer, right? We have state and we have dispatcher like that. Similarly, we are doing here like state and send. So it's almost similar, like type and value. There is type and some payload, right? So is there any like similar use case I can implement using use reducer also, right?
Okay. So your question is, why should I use XState if I am already using that reducer concept, all those things? So I agree that this is state management machine package, but additionally you can see there are a couple of things that it is providing that will give you a more better understanding to structure your app. First is a visual representation. You cannot have that with the other library. You can edit that flow inside the diagram itself. So you don't need to write the code unless you are pretty clear with what you want to build, right? This is first thing. Second, we have this event-driven architecture. So you just need to think about triggering an event, and the side effects will be taken care of inside the state machine. So you don't need to think, I want to call an API here. In the second flow, again, I need to write the code for the calling an API. If you have already written for one event, you can just trigger that event from some other component as well. So all the business logic, you can write it inside the state machine file, and you just need to think about from where we need to trigger the events. So this couple of things, because of which you get much clear view of your app and your business logic. Yeah. So inside state machine itself, inside that actions object, right? It is for side effect. So you can send an API, you can cache everything, you can just console.log, you can do anything. So it's, how I think is React component only will take care of the UI, the HTML and all those things. And state machine will take care of all the actual logic and the sequence of the logic and all those things. Yeah. Okay.
I had a similar question on that line. So,
Yes.
since actions are a side event of an side effect of an event, right? So we can have like probably an async code base in our actions. Is there any way we can like have a sync result which can go into the background so that when I trigger an event, okay, there would be target and an action. And so I could reach to the target part, but the action could run in background and I could just go ahead to the target part anyways.
Okay. So you are saying, will it handle the asynchronous code, right?
It would handle the asynchronous code, right?
Right.
Is there any way it could handle the synchronous part that I could reach to target anyways, whereas the action is still taking place synchronously in background? I don't care on that.
Okay, so you are asking, let me just clear the question. You are asking, can I go to the next step and
Correct.
in background some
Correct.
events,
I don't want
some
to-
API
I don't
call
want
or
to
something happening?
Block my code execution just to wait for the result.
Okay,
come
yeah,
back.
you can do that. You can do that. So inside the action object, right? I just showed you there is an array and there are multiple functions. Inside that function, you can write asynchronous code that will run in the background and you can go to the next step.
But won't that be blocking because it is an asynchronous function, right?
Sorry?
It is an asynchronous function,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
right.
that would be blocking, right? So the order is like that, if I'm not wrong. The action completes first and then we go to the target, right?
Okay.
So if the action is blocking, how can we go to the target if the action is not completed?
Okay. So, just let's not think about the state machine right now. Just think about normal JavaScript code. How will you write this function? If you want to stop, then you will use the await inside the async function.
Correct.
If you don't want to block, you just will not use the await. So, same thing you can do inside the state machine.
Exactly identical, right? There is nothing special to handle.
Yeah. It's basic JavaScript, TypeScript here.
Question here over here. Just down. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
What would be the key difference between XState and RxJS? Like both are like event-driven architecture.
Okay.
What would be the key difference between RxJS, which follows the PubSub model, and probably the internal of XState would be also going through the PubSub model itself?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay. So I haven't used the RxJS. If any one of you must have used, then you can pitch in. But apart from that, I don't think so. RxJS give the visual representation, and you cannot design the flow with states and events maybe. So that's an added advantage. But maybe we can take this question offline. I'll just go through the details and I can answer you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.